Welcome to Business Reporter's Battery Technology campaign. I'm Rachel Hicks. Reducing air pollution, charging electric cars, balancing the power supply. These are only a few of the expectations that the national grid must satisfy. We've seen that the demand is fluctuating and often overwhelms the capacities. And we know that suppliers and consumers, businesses and citizens, innovators and investors must come together and change the energy infrastructure. How? Let's hear Robert Hamilton from Power Sonic explain how smart battery systems can bring a step change. Thank you, Robert, for coming in today. Now, the National Grid have set themselves a target of procuring 50% of balancing services from demand response providers by 2020. Could you put that into context for us? Explain whether they're really going to manage to meet their targets.
Yeah, so demand-side response is a system that's in place by National Grid to reduce your energy consumption throughout certain times of the day. So demand is, National Grid say we need X amount of power, and the response is from any user or anyone with a system that's able to join this programme, they can release that energy or reduce their consumption throughout that time.
So how has the demand-side response developed over the last 10 years, say?
Well, I've seen a change. I've been involved in the industry over the last 10 years. 10 years ago, many companies or National Grid were looking at companies which had either a UPS system, a generator or chillers or anything which uses a large amount of power to take that off the grid. So what we're looking into today is fast-acting solutions, so battery backup that can put more power into the grid when there's an increased demand, microgrid scenarios where companies are making their own independent power, or even large volume customers where they can take little bits of power within their own sites to produce, let's say, a large array of power coming off the system. So things have changed, things have got more smart, and National Grid and the aggregators are able to manage the demand-side response.
Are there any other benefits for the National Grid other than being able to manage the continuous supply of power to where they need to?
Oh, absolutely. So it's a case of increasing or reducing demand of power. We're also able to, with our system, we're able to deal with things like the frequency issues that National Grid come across. So the DRM covers the frequency as well as the increase and decrease of power requirements.
So how does the DSR generate revenue for consumers?
Now, National Grid or the aggregators that work with National Grid will pay you. There's a multiplier of different agreements that are available from National Grid. So they'll pay you for not only the excess energy, they'll pay you for grid balancing, they'll pay you for sorting out frequency issues on site. So it's about what any individual company can do in agreement with National Grid regulations, as well as what contracts are available at a given time.
There's been a huge advancement in battery technology. So tell me, how can battery management systems replace diesel generators to provide supply or uninterrupted supplies for places like hospitals that will demand it?
Okay, very, very simple. So everyone knows about, let's say, dirty diesel. Everyone's concerned about the emissions and what it's doing to the environment, the CO2 emissions, etc., etc. So in order to, let's say, take advantage of the battery technology that's out there, what we can do with the DRM system is take that excess energy, store it into our batteries. So when there's a demand for, let's say, battery backup or additional power, our batteries take over and push more energy into the system, as it were. It can also be used in the event of a power failure situation. So typically in a hospital, as you've asked, a generator will kick in and give you however many hours or minutes of battery backup or backup that is required. With a battery, because it's clean stored tech, there is no use of diesel within our system.
And how can systems like this, kind of off-the-grid systems, help provide electricity in remote areas?
If there's simply no power in a particular area, or it costs too much to get a feed in from National Grid, our system is able to sit there in remote remote scenarios and provide a completely standalone microgrid environment. So our system can act as an independent power generation facility.
Okay, so you've clearly got flexibility. So how does your demand response module provide scalability, and perhaps there are other areas where it's flexible that you can tell us about?
It's very, very flexible in the fact that it comes in a multitude of sizes. So today, we know what our power requirements are, but we don't know what's going on in the future. So if a requirement or if a user demands, let's say 500 kilowatts or 1 megawatt, we would go in and put a modular solution that will fit that requirement today. If in the future they demand more power, our system will be able to grow as the power requirements grow. We've also future-proofed the unit as well in terms of the battery tech that we're using, the scalability, the fact that it can give power within less than 4 milliseconds. So it's very, very flexible to the continuing demands that National Grid are placing on our system, and also the demands that any user or operator is using within the environment.
Can you just paint a picture a little more of the uses of the battery management system that's at the heart of your DRM?
So some of the systems or some of the uses of that is EV charging, as I said, resilience on site. And the way it works is very, very simple. So if you have a requirement for X amount of kilowatts, or demand for X amount of kilowatts, or you've got to produce X amount of kilowatts on the system, our battery will dispense the exact amount of requirement that is required.
How does it ensure the optimal use of batteries?
Again, we have our own patented battery control system. So we know when a battery is either fully discharged or recharged, and we ensure that we're making the unit extremely flexible, extremely efficient. The last thing we want to do is provide power that's going to either run out or degrade. Remember, these systems are going to go in over the next 5, 10, 15 years. So we need to fit the battery to meet the application. So we might put SLA batteries, which stands for sealed lead acid batteries, or we might put a lithium ion battery in there, which we know can last as much as 15 years. So it's all about flexibility, and also how the end user or the customer wants to use that system.
Okay, now I can't have the director of a company that's concerned with batteries and uninterrupted power sources in front of me without raising the question of electric cars.
Yes.
Now, there aren't enough charging points. There are only around 14,000 in Britain. Are you hoping there's going to be a major breakthrough in this in the next 5 years?
As people move over to EV, the demand is obviously going to increase on the grid. So we need and have developed a system that's flexible to those demands. So today, you might be driving around in a car which maybe requires 5 kilowatt of charging. You never know. In a year or 2 years' time, you might upgrade your car and require fast charging, obviously with a greater range within the car. So with that fast charging and greater range, you need more power. So in order to bridge that gap, the DRM system is able to bridge that gap and provide more power as and when is required, by using our battery technology combined with grid flexibility.
It's a great peek into the future. Robert Hamilton from Powersonic, thank you very much for coming in today.
My pleasure, thank you.